In March of 1977, on March 15th, a television show premiered on ABC that would become one of the most beloved and successful sitcoms in television history. Three's Company introduced American audiences to a world of sexual misunderstanding, innocent deception, and the kind of physical comedy that had audiences laughing every Tuesday night for nearly a decade. The show was set in a Santa Monica apartment shared by three single young people: Jack Tripper, played by John Ritter; Janet Wood, played by Joyce DeWitt; and Chrissy Snow, played by Suzanne Summers. The premise was simple. In order to rent the apartment at a time when landlords refused to allow unmarried men and women to live together, Jack claimed to be gay, allowing him to live with two women without scandal. The landlord, Mr. Roper, played by Norman Fell, and his wife, Mrs. Roper, played by Audra Lindley, constantly tried to catch the trio breaking their supposed living arrangement, creating endless opportunities for comedic misunderstanding. Three's Company was a massive success. It was a top 10 show in America for 8 consecutive seasons. It spawned multiple spin-offs. It made millions of dollars for the network. It made stars out of the 3 young actors who played its central characters. For 8 seasons and 172 episodes, from 1977 to 1984, Three's Company was must-see television. Audiences loved it. Critics often dismissed it as lowbrow television, but the numbers did not lie. America wanted to watch Three's Company. But behind the scenes of this hugely successful show, the cast members were engaged in conflict, struggle, and personal tragedy. This is the true story of what really happened to the cast of Three's Company, and it is a story of sudden death, fired dreams, decade-long feuds, and the dark realities that lay beneath the surface of one of America's most beloved sitcoms. John Ritter played Jack Tripper, the charming, physically gifted leading man whose bumbling misunderstandings and pratfalls formed the comic heart of the show. John Ritter was born in Los Angeles in 1948. His father was Tex Ritter, a famous country musician and actor. John Ritter grew up around entertainment and performance. He was naturally talented at physical comedy. When he was cast as Jack Tripper, he was already an experienced television and film actor, but Three's Company made him a star. For 8 seasons, Ritter was the anchor of the show. His chemistry with his co-stars was undeniable. His physical comedy was impeccable. American audiences loved him. When Three's Company ended in 1984, John Ritter went on to continued success. He appeared in numerous television shows and films. He was respected as an actor and as a person. In 2002, John Ritter was cast in a new television show called 8 Simple Rules for Dating My Teenage Daughter. The show was a family sitcom in which Ritter played the father. It was lighter in tone than Three's Company, but allowed Ritter to continue his television career. The show was a success. Ritter was working steadily and seemed to be in good health. But on September 11th, 2003, everything changed. On that day, John Ritter was on the set of 8 Simple Rules at Walt Disney Studios in Burbank, California. It was supposed to be a normal day of work. He was rehearsing scenes with the other actors. It was actually his daughter Stella's 5th birthday, and there was supposed to be a small celebration on set. But around 6 in the evening, John Ritter collapsed. He suddenly began sweating profusely. He was vomiting. He was experiencing severe chest pain. Colleagues rushed him across the street to Providence St. Joseph Medical Center, the same hospital where he had been born 54 years earlier. When Ritter arrived at the emergency room, doctors saw a man in his 50s with severe chest pain and interpreted his symptoms as a heart attack. They began treating him for a myocardial infarction, administering blood thinners and other heart attack medications. But John Ritter did not have a heart attack. He had something far more serious and far more difficult to diagnose: an aortic dissection. This is when the inner layer of the aorta, the main artery carrying blood from the heart to the rest of the body, tears. Blood forces its way between the layers of the artery wall. It is a rare condition, and it is often fatal. It is also easily misdiagnosed as a heart attack. As the evening went on, Ritter's condition rapidly deteriorated. The treatment he was receiving for a heart attack was actually making his aortic dissection worse. The blood thinners, designed to dissolve clots in the arteries, were making the tear in his aorta worse. Doctors eventually realized what was actually happening and rushed Ritter into emergency surgery. Surgeons worked frantically to repair the tear in his aorta, but it was too late. The damage was too extensive. At 10:48 p.m. on September 11th, 2003, John Ritter died on the operating table. He was 54 years old. He had been 6 days away from his 55th birthday. The death of John Ritter shocked America. Fans who had grown up watching him on Three's Company could not believe that the vibrant, seemingly healthy actor was gone. His family was devastated. His widow, Amy Yasbeck, and his children lost the husband and father they loved. Ritter's death also raised important questions about medical diagnosis and treatment. Some argued that if Ritter's aortic dissection had been properly diagnosed earlier, he might have survived. His family later sued a hospital and 2 doctors for wrongful death, claiming that the misdiagnosis and subsequent improper treatment hastened his death. The cases were settled out of court, with his family receiving settlements totaling millions of dollars. But no amount of money could bring John Ritter back. Since Ritter's death, his wife Amy Asbeck has founded the John Ritter Foundation to raise awareness about aortic dissection. She has worked tirelessly to educate the public about the symptoms and treatment of this deadly condition. In honoring her late husband, she has turned his tragic death into a platform for saving other lives. But the tragedy of John Ritter's death is compounded by another tragedy, a feud that destroyed the friendship between his co-stars Suzanne Somers and Joyce DeWitt. The two women did not speak for 30 years, and their bitter silence is one of the darkest chapters in the history of Three's Company.
Suzanne Somers played Chrissy Snow, the sweet, silly, lovable blonde roommate. When Three's Company premiered in 1977, Suzanne Somers was not as famous as John Ritter. But as the show progressed, Somers became a household name. Her character became beloved. Magazines featured her on their covers. She became the face of the show for millions of viewers. But in 1980, as the show was heading into its 5th season, Suzanne Somers made a business decision that would change everything. She asked ABC for a salary increase. At the time, Somers was making $30,000 per episode. John Ritter was making considerably more. Suzanne Somers felt that this was unfair. She was one of the 3 leading actors on the show. She was carrying a significant portion of the comedy. She felt that she deserved equal pay. So she requested a raise from $30,000 to $150,000 per episode, matching what Ritter was earning. She also asked for a percentage of the show's profits. ABC's response was shocking. The network offered her a $5,000 raise and refused everything else. Then, when Somers pushed back and insisted that her request was reasonable, the network did something unprecedented in television. They fired her. They did not want her to negotiate. They did not want to seem like they were giving in to her demands. They fired her to send a message to every other woman in television. If you ask for equal pay, you will be blacklisted. You will be punished. Your career will be destroyed. Suzanne Somers was made an example of. The impact on Somers was immediate and brutal. She was isolated on set. She was not allowed to see other cast members. She had to get her costumes from a wardrobe assistant and was not permitted to interact with the rest of the cast. Joyce DeWitt, her on-screen best friend, had sided with ABC against her. Joyce DeWitt did not feel that Somers' request for equal pay was justified. DeWitt saw Somers as disloyal, as putting her own greed ahead of the good of the show. The two women became enemies. When Somers' contract ended after the 5th season, she was officially fired. She was replaced by other actresses playing different characters, and Three's Company continued without her. The network had successfully eliminated what they saw as a problem, but what they had actually done was create a 30-year feud between two women who had been friends. Suzanne Somers and Joyce DeWitt did not speak for 3 decades. They did not see each other. They did not acknowledge each other's existence. When the show's cast would reunite for interviews or special events, Somers and DeWitt would not acknowledge each other. The silence was deafening. During those 30 years, Suzanne Somers built an entirely new career for herself. She was not trapped by Three's Company like other actors. She went on to host a Las Vegas show. She hosted her own talk show. She wrote books about health and wellness. She became the face of the ThighMaster exercise device, selling millions of them and making an estimated $300 million from the product alone. When asked about being fired from Three's Company, Somers said, "That was the great thing about being fired. I would have never been able to do what I do now." But despite her professional success, the feud with Joyce DeWitt weighed on Somers. For 30 years, she was estranged from the woman who had been her television sister. The pain of that estrangement was real. Then, in 2012, a remarkable thing happened. Suzanne Somers invited Joyce DeWitt to appear on her talk show Breaking Through. It was the first time the two women had seen each other in more than 30 years. When Joyce walked on stage, Suzanne said, "Oh my God, holy cowski," and immediately became emotional. The two women embraced. And for the first time in 30 years, they began to talk. Suzanne explained that her original push for equal pay had always been about business. She was a single mother when she took the role on Three's Company. She needed the money. She was not trying to destroy the show or betray her friends. She was trying to survive and provide for her child. She apologized if her demands had upset Joyce and the other cast members. Joyce, for her part, explained that she had been so hurt by Suzanne's request. DeWitt was a serious actress. She had studied theater in college. She had earned a master's degree in fine arts from UCLA. For her, Three's Company was not a business venture. It was art. She felt that Summers did not respect the craft of acting. The two women had very different approaches to their work, and that difference had created a rift that lasted 30 years. But in that moment on Breaking Through, the two women found reconciliation. They hugged. They cried. They forgave each other. And for a brief time, it seemed like the feud might finally be over. But the reconciliation came too late for one crucial moment. Several months before their reunion on Breaking Through, John Ritter had reached out to Suzanne Summers. The two had not been in contact for years. But in his final months of life, John Ritter made an effort to reconnect with Summers. He wanted to end the estrangement. He wanted to repair the relationships that had been damaged by the feud. But the reconciliation was never complete.
In September 2003, John Ritter died. His two co-stars, Suzanne Summers and Joyce DeWitt, who had been friends on screen and enemies off-screen, mourned his loss. But they did not truly reunite until 9 years later. By that time, so much time had passed that none of them could go back and repair what had been broken. The other cast members of Three's Company also experienced tragedy. Norman Fell, who played Mr. Roper, died of cancer on December 14, 1998, at age 74. Don Knotts, who replaced Norman Fell as the landlord Mr. Furley in the later seasons of the show, died of lung cancer on February 24, 2006, at age 81. Audra Lindley, who played Mrs. Roper, died of leukemia on October 16, 1997, at age 79. And then, on October 15, 2023, Suzanne Summers died. She was 76 years old, just 1 day shy of her 77th birthday. She died from breast cancer that had metastasized to the brain. She had battled cancer for over 23 years, but eventually it overwhelmed her body. So of the original 5 main cast members of Three's Company, all have now died except for Joyce DeWitt. The show that brought them together and made them famous has also been the source of deep pain and loss. The sitcom about 3 friends living together and supporting each other through life's challenges became, in real life, a story of estrangement, conflict, and ultimately, death. The greatest tragedy is that Three's Company's fundamental message was about friendship, loyalty, and the bonds between people who care for each other. But the cast members who played those characters were unable to maintain those bonds in their own lives. The silence between Suzanne Summers and Joyce DeWitt lasted 30 years. The feud was so bitter that the two women nearly died without ever reconciling. If there's a lesson in the story of Three's Company, it is this, that the characters we play on television are sometimes more real than we are as people. That the friendships we pretend to have in front of cameras are sometimes more genuine than the real friendships we maintain off camera. That the pain caused by money, by career ambitions, and by different values can corrode even the deepest bonds. And that sometimes, by the time we realize how much we value someone, it is already too late. The legacy of Three's Company endures. The show continues to be watched and enjoyed by new generations of viewers. But the real story of Three's Company is the story of these real people, with all their flaws and regrets, struggling to maintain their careers and their relationships in an industry that demands everything and gives back very little. If you have watched Three's Company, or if you have discovered it through streaming services, please share your thoughts in the comments below. What does the show mean to you? Which cast member did you relate to most? And what do you think about the feud between Suzanne Summers and Joyce DeWitt? Because remembering these stories and honoring the real people behind the characters is how we keep their memory alive.